A lot of people view the Converse All-Star Chuck Taylors as a go-to footwear selection for lifters everywhere. But what if I were to tell you that ditching the Chucks could actually help you lift more weight? In today's video, we're going to discuss how the foot should optimally work while lifting and take a look at other footwear that could potentially help you lift more.
In today's video, I want to talk about why I ditched the classic Converse Chuck Taylor All-Star. It has like a million names, but for the sake of this video, I'll just call it the Chuck Taylors. I finally got myself a sturdy place to sit. As compared to before. So let's get into it. In modern fitness culture, bodybuilders, powerlifters, and strongmen alike all recognize that this classic shoe is a go-to footwear for workouts. And I think that's because of a couple reasons, right? It's, for one, it's fashionable because people care about what you wear to the gym, which is kind of hypocritical because I'm wearing a knockoff Miller Lite shirt that says lift. But yeah, I guess people do care about what you wear to the gym. And then, most importantly with the function, the Chuck Taylors have a very flat and hard sole, which limits compression under heavy load. So let's say you're taking like a 500-pound squat, and with a hard flat sole, you're not gonna have any compression. But let's say you took that squat in a running shoe, all of the padding and cushioning might shift slightly while you're squatting, and that'll cause you to lose stability, which, with all that weight on your back is definitely not good. And then also leak power, which, if you're trying to lift the most amount of weight you can, it's also not desirable. So it's great that the Chuck Taylors have that to their advantage, but they do have one fatal flaw, and that is the narrowness of their sole. And you can actually see with this pair, which I did wear for over maybe even 2 years. Yeah, I think I wore them for over 2 years. So I definitely got my use out of them. But I blew out the side here. And that's not to say because I have like abnormally wide feet. I have pretty normal feet, and for people with wide feet, I've heard them say like they just can't fit their feet into these kind of shoes. But it seems like a lot of people sacrifice that function for fashion, and with shoes that I've worn in the past, like Vans, Sperry's, and like Chuck Taylors, they're all kind of narrow, which cramps my feet. And you can see in this diagram, the feet are actually, the toes I should say more specifically, are meant to spread. And when you have, for example, let's say your pinky toe squished into a shoe, that's not really how your feet were designed to work. And I've even felt like cramping up the side of my calf and into my hips from walking around in footwear with too narrow of a sole for too long. All that being said, I think it's important to consider that the foot is way more complex than a lot of people might think. According to arthritis.org, there are 28 bones, 30 joints, and around 100 muscles, tendons, and ligaments combined in the foot. And I think that should just cause you to want to pay closer attention to how this intricate body part works, especially if you care about lifting more and performing better. So if you're not sold yet, I think this next part will definitely sell you. If I could tell you that you would lift more just barefoot or with a barefoot style shoe, would you make that switch? And I think a lot of people would. So here's a quick clip for you of Larry Wheels smashing a 922-pound deadlift. You only get a quick glimpse of it, but yeah, you can see that he's actually doing that barefoot. But why? There's a couple of things that lifting barefoot allows you to do. One, rooting, which we'll talk about that a little later. Also spreading your feet, as I mentioned before. And then maintaining the arch the way it's intended to be. And on the topic of your arch, I feel like that's something that's very popular with the running community, but I do believe there's some transfer over to lifting as well. So the arch, at least as many people think about it, is called the longitudinal arch. There's two other arches in your foot, believe it or not, but the one that a lot of people see and recognize is the medial side of that longitudinal arch. And I'm going to pull up a quote real quick. According to physiopedia.com, The arch's shape is designed in a similar manner to a spring. It bears the weight of the body and absorbs the shock that is produced with locomotion. So if you think about how important the arch then is, if it's acting like a spring, maintaining that arch through heavy lifts is a great way to focus on improving your power transfer from the ground to your body through the implement or the barbell. And going back to footwear and what you should wear, there's another quote that I like to reference, which is once again from like running, hiking community, and they say, wearing a thickly cushioned, rigid-soled footwear is like putting your foot in a cast and expecting it to grow stronger. And the fact is, if you put your foot in one of those very, very padded and cushiony running shoes for too long, the muscles and even the arch will begin to break down or atrophy. And this actually gained backing in the scientific community as well. In a 2014 study called The Effect of Minimal Shoes on Arch Structure and Intrinsic Foot Muscle Strength, which was completed by Miller and colleagues, they found that with a group of runners that they had, they split it in half, of course. Half was the control group wearing a traditional running shoe. The other half was their trial, wearing a minimal style shoe. And that trial group had a 10% increase in hypertrophy in the flexor digitorum brevis, or that main underfoot muscle, compared to the control group. And they also found 60% increased stiffness in the longitudinal arch. And while that might not correlate 100% over to lifting, I do think that arch stiffness and being able to maintain that arch will definitely help with your power transfer and also your stability. And it might be a little anecdotal in me saying this, but I do believe that when you have your feet working as they are intended to, other muscles will begin to fire and be primed as they're intended to as well, such as quads, glutes, hip flexor muscles, all that stuff. Going back to that term rooting I was throwing out, and stability in general. So rooting, you can kind of think of this, it's in the word, as establishing very firm contact between the ground and your feet, like a tree's roots connected to the ground. So to break that down into simpler to understand terms, the way I like to cue this with the clients I work with is to imagine as if your foot were like an eagle's talon. And you have one talon on your big toe, one talon on your pinky toe, and another talon on your heel. And that is gripping and grabbing into the ground, which will give you rock solid stability and then also allow you to externally rotate and activate those lower body muscles properly. And I think that if you've ever had problems with dorsiflexion or your toes popping up on the squat, or eversion where your feet might come in towards the middle, or inversion, the opposite, where they're coming, the middle side of your feet is coming up and out, that you could definitely work on rooting. It might take you a little bit of practice to master the technique, but there are drills out there. I would once again defer to Chris Duffin with some of those drills. And it's something that is very underlooked, in my opinion, in terms of maintaining stability and once again that power transfer while lifting. So what am I wearing now, you might ask? And just to get it out of the way, I'm not affiliated with the company by any means, but the shoe by Barefoot Athletics called Ursus, as you can see, it's got a very wide toe box, which allows you to spread your feet properly, get that nice root into the ground. Once again, like a very minimalist feel, and a very, very thin, even thinner than the Chuck Taylors, and hard sole, which you can really feel the arch being maintained through this sole. So like I said, not affiliated with this company at all. There are other options out there, of course, but I am a big fan of this shoe, and I think that my overall proprioception, stability, and power transfer have improved since switching over to the Ursus. Highly recommend the shoe. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you learned something from this video. Of course, if you have any questions, or if you'd like to drop what kind of footwear you wear to the gym in the comments below, do that, and I'll catch you in the next one, guys. Thanks again for watching.